All right. Hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, play fast football. Uh, Figured I'd get on Wednesday night. Didn't have anything else going on. Have some meetings and stuff going on tomorrow, and then a couple things going on over the weekend. So figured tonight would be the best night to jump on, talk a little bit of football, see what you guys got going on. Um, Pretty exciting day for me. We wrapped up our last summer 7-on-7, and I know I probably shouldn't be all that excited about that, but it just means that the football season and what I think is regular football is now here, and it's close for us to be able to get ready to start getting ready for camp and not have to worry about 7-on-7 stuff that we have to do. Although it's not that I dislike 7-on-7. I think it just presents some issues for us that um, take too much time and effort to worry about that we don't have to worry about as much during the season, if that makes sense. So, um, it's good for the kids. It's good to see kids compete. It's good to coach and defensively work on communication or things that aren't getting communicated properly. Work on what coverages you're playing to certain formations, how you would handle empty stuff. So it's not all bad. It's just that the setup of it, to me, it's almost like um, in a way, it's almost like you need a 7-on-7 philosophy and then an 11-on-11 philosophy. All the things that we kind of set up to try and do when we're playing, uh, 11-on-11 football are kind of the antithesis of some of the things that we need to do in 7-on-7. So, um, it's just something that, the kids like it, number one. So you probably need to do it. I definitely think it helps with reps. It certainly helps with receivers catching passes, quarterbacks throwing passes, working on, the timing of things and the spacing of things on offense. I like it 100 times better as an offensive coach than I do a defensive coach. I can tell you that much. But it's still, it has some drawbacks to it to me that I think sometimes can kind of hurt what you're trying to do as a defensive unit. So, again, and maybe you just change your approach to it, right? Maybe you take the approach that we're going to, play these 7-on-7 deals, that we're going to play more man, coverages. We're going to play more 2-man. We're going to do things that we don't do a ton of so that we can have more success in the 7-on-7 stuff. But then you're not really teaching. Anytime you're playing man, you get a chance to teach man. I don't think that's ever a waste of time. I don't think kids play, at least our kids, we don't play man as much. So they, any reps that they could get playing man stuff, I think is a bonus. But, if you did all the things that you wanted to do without having to worry about run fits. So like, certain compressed sets or bunch sets, you can just box everything or area everything or zone it off. And you don't have to worry about run fits. You don't have to worry about the ball getting to the edge. So you can kind of do all the things that would make it easier to defend certain things in 7-on-7. But the problem I have with that is if it doesn't set up in a way that helps you fit runs and play football when camp starts, then it's almost counterintuitive to do those things for 7-on-7 success. But then when the season comes, you're going to have different checks to these sets, or you're going to do different things. So we always try to play, formations and things we see. We try to play them the way we would play them during the regular season so that we can get, as many reps as possible so that our communication can stay consistent and we can do the things that we need to do to have success when the season comes. So, so sometimes I look at it and I feel like you almost need a 7-on-7 game plan, and then you need an 11-on-11 game plan. And I would certainly do things differently if it was based on, how much success you were having 7-on-7. So we didn't play any tournaments this year. We only threw, I think, 3 total 7-on-7s against other schools. We throw, against our own offense all the time, but that's a little bit different because we can play the things we want to play. Because we're allowed. So my biggest pet peeve I have with 7-on-7 stuff is we are a big drop 8 team. A lot of the things that we do versus certain formations involve dropping 8. I did a YouTube short video this morning. I've done other YouTube live videos, YouTube videos on this channel where I've talked about my philosophy in high school on defense is I don't I don't think generating a pass rush is anywhere near as important as people think in high school. Um, I've been coaching high school football for 24 years now, 25 years almost. And not only is it 80% run, but of the 20% passes that you see, I would guarantee if you went back and looked throughout the course of a season, of the passes that you see, the ball is out of the quarterback's hands in under probably 1.5 seconds. It's quick game, it's rhythm passing, it's access, it's now screens, it's bubble screens. So, um, to generate a pass rush to balls that are coming out of the quarterback's hands so quickly, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. I'd rather cover and then have some deals in when we need to get to the quarterback. Obviously, you can get to the quarterback, but um, I think drop eight is a bigger deal for us because I'm not as worried about how much time the quarterback has to throw the ball because we don't see those kind of schemes, right? So obviously, um, I talked the other day. I did a punt protection. We went and listened to the sat with special teams guys from the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is the stadium's right across the river from our school. So, and we were talking special team stuff, and the league and our game is so much different that you got to understand where you're trying to get your information from, and then you need to understand what is conducive for you to have success at your level. And for us in the game that we see, at least the game that I've seen for 25 years, I feel like I'm better off being able to cover than I am, trying to worry about rushing the passer. What that also allows us to do, it allows us to play some things to formations where, you know, if we're 3-3 or 3-4 in nature, it allows us to play some things with a little bit lighter box and constantly have overhangs where we need them. And, 2x2 sets that we see, we can do whatever we need to do to each side because we can have an overhang to each side. And, so when you're playing three down and only rushing those three, obviously there's going to be some issues that get created, but you know what those issues are. So, when we throw against ourselves, we play our defense. So it's a little bit better for us, as far as the reps that we're getting. And, so we have some deals where, our weak side outside linebacker is going to be part of the coverage. And we have some deals when he's not. When he's not part of the coverage, he takes a knee. When he is part of the coverage, he's in. But when we go to 7-on-7s, we can't bring, you can't line up 8 guys in a 7-on-7 and tell the other coach, hey, we're going to drop 8 in a 7-on-7. So, some of those things for us are kind of get to a point where you got to be able to teach your kids and say, all right, look, here's what we do in base defense, but here's how we have to play it in 7-on-7. So, for us, a lot of times our weak side inside backer and 7-on-7 has to assume all the coverages that our weak side outside backer would assume in our base defense deal. So, again, it's not that I'm anti 7-on-7. I like seeing our kids compete. I like the chance to coach our kids against other teams. I like the chance to be able to use those reps for teaching purposes. It's just that it doesn't set up to be as conducive for us because of the drop 8 stuff that we can't do, when it's the 7-on-7 setting. So, again, but it was good. We saw some stuff today, a lot of empty. And again, I don't know how much the team that we threw against today, I don't know how much empty they are on a regular basis, but we saw a lot of empty, which made us, have to make a bunch of adjustments. It got us to recognize some formations we haven't seen in a while and got a chance to talk to the safeties, about some of the times when we're playing like now, getting away from our 3 high stuff. We now play some poach theories or, stress theories, whatever you want to consider them, where we borrow the backside safety to trips. And with the empty stuff today, it was a good chance to be able to talk to our safeties about formations and how they can communicate with one another. And, if there's trips on one side and we're trying to borrow the backside safety and the front side safeties, making a call to tell the backside safety that he needs them. And the backside safety tells him, no, you got to play this coverage. Well, now the front side safety realizes that it's either empty or he's got 2 over there. So, being able to teach the safeties and say, hey, look, if you got 2 on your side, you can never travel to the other side to play that. I don't care how many receivers, they can only have 3 over there. That's the most they can have if you have 2 over here. So, one side safety, if he doesn't see the whole picture, if he just sees trips and he wants to make a trips coverage kick, because we travel and borrow safeties from the other side. Well, he's trying to tell that safety, hey, I need you over here to play mix, or I need you over here to play poach. And that safety has to be able to tell him, no, you need to play stump, or you need to play another deal because I can't come over there. When that happens, the front side safety then realizes, well, all right, obviously he's got two over there. The first thing you should do is you check the backfield and see, whether or not, if there's trips on your side and nobody in the backfield, probably means it's empty, right? If there's trips on your side with a back in the backfield, well, now you can go ahead and borrow your backside safety, do any of the things that you need to do. And, which again is different because the last 2 years we didn't worry about any of that because our middle safety was always somebody who could adjust to a 3 receiver side. And, we had multiple coverages we could play to the trip side without having to borrow guys from the backside. So we never really had to worry about that. So that was one good thing about 7-on-7 stuff. Come on. That was one, now that's a positive about 7-on-7. The fact that we got to see empty and got to kind of explain to our kids with some of the adjustments we made on defense, what we can do and what we can't do. Why 3-by-2 is different than 3-by-1. Technically, if we borrow the backside safety and it was 3-by-2 empty, the Will's got to go out and play number 2. And I don't think you want your Will playing out on a number 2 in a slot man-to-man. So, those things are good. Seeing motions and the adjustments that you might need to make to motion, understanding that certain motions are different in base than they are in man coverage deals. All those things are a positive. They're a bonus, right? But, having to carry almost 2 different sets of rules for how we play certain formations because we don't have the players that we need. All of our cover 3 stuff, I've mentioned this several times, all of our cover 3 stuff is drop 8. So we don't play one, in reality, we don't play, except a motion adjustment here or there, but we really don't play typically any 3 deep that is not drop 8. So the way we teach it is different than I would teach it if we were Rip Bliz match or if we were country cover 3, 4 under 3 deep, because with the extra defender, we can always get a side flooded out. So to the passing strength, we can always get a flat player, a curl player, and a hook player. We don't have to worry about the interchange of certain routes and different things because that side's always going to be flooded out. And then the backside, you've got a hook curl player and a curl flat player, but you probably don't have 3 receivers to that side because when we drop 8, the mic is going to relate to where the 3rd receiver is. So, so we don't play any 3 deep stuff in 7-on-7. If we close the field, it's usually some type of 1 rat deal where it's, a low hole player and a high hole player. So there's just some things that make it a little bit more difficult for us to do. But now that we get over that, now we get to a point where it's now, hey, we're getting ready for the season. We're going to camp. It's all camp rules. It's all base rules. Let's get ready to defend the things we need to defend. Let's start talking about pressures, all the good stuff. So it's always exciting for me when you get that kind of last 7-on-7 out of the way in the summer, because sometimes I feel like it can be a little bit of a burden. At least to me, coaching wise, I feel like it can be a little bit of a burden because there's some things that you're worrying about that you're not going to handle them that way when you're dropping 8 or couldn't play any of our middle of the field close stuff. So it's a little bit of a relief when so we have 1 more workout tomorrow and then we have 4 workouts next week. And then for us, we start July 29th. So, it's a little bit of a relief to know that tomorrow, next week, and then when we start camp, we're just getting ready to play regular football. It's all our base rules. We don't have to take anybody out. We can play with everybody that we need to play and practice with everybody that we need to practice with. And we don't have to worry about, we can play all of our coverage. So we can, we can work on formation recognition and getting into the right coverages, and we can work on our middle of the field closed coverages. And so, for me, it's always I don't want to say exciting is the wrong word. You don't want to make it like you don't want to coach the 7-on-7 stuff, but it's just stressful for me. It's there's a lot of issues that come up. The kids when they don't play well, it becomes a confidence issue now. And you don't want your kids to be dejected going into the season. So, in order to have success in those kinds of things, I think you have to play certain deals and carry certain deals just because of what you're going to see. And there is no pass rush and there's nobody in the quarterback's face. And, the kid's got 3 to 4 seconds to throw the ball. So, if you were to go to 7-on-7 tournaments, the teams that win, I guarantee you, are playing primarily 2-man, right? That's what they're doing. The teams that win on offense, it's probably empty with 5 verticals and a bunch of other stuff that, if you go back and watch them play during the season, I don't know if that's really what they do. Now, if it is what they do, then hats off to them. So be it. But, you just, it's a lot of stuff that you don't see. But I think if you were going to play competitive 7-on-7, then that's the stuff that you would have to carry, right? I think you need to, every game, it doesn't matter what you're playing, whatever you're playing, if you're trying to win, you need to take advantage of the rules of what's going on and play things. So there's no run fits. So why would you worry about anything that keeps guys in the box, that keeps guys where, you can lighten the box, you can do whatever you want, you can play man with help behind it. You don't have to worry about fit and runs or first down calls. So why wouldn't you do those things to be effective? I just choose, for me, philosophically, I just choose to play our stuff because I want to get better at what we're doing, right? Why go somewhere to play stuff that, I think we played two-man last year, probably 18 to 20 snaps out of 963 snaps. So why would I want to, rep that a bunch of times in 7-on-7 over the summer when we don't carry it that much? So that was always, again, my philosophy on things. I want to rep the things that we carry. I want to try and make sure that our reps in practice and our reps over the summer are indicative to what we are going to do when the season starts. So, I want to make sure we're practicing and spending more time on the things that we actually call the most, right? So what are our PN10s? What are our standard drive starters? What are our base scenarios? What are all those deals? All the other situations you have to address. But to me, it comes down to, on offense or defense, it comes down to kind of, you almost have to have a flow chart of things to say, all right, listen, or if you want to break it down into some type of, percentage of a pie chart to say, okay, look, here's our defensive calls. Here's how many snaps we played. Here's what we had to defend. Here's what we did last year. There was, 70% of our snaps are tight 3 high and 20% of our snaps are, 4 down fronts and 10% of our snaps are third down packages or whatever that is, right? Well, then you want to spend 70% of your practice time doing the things that you call 70% in the game. And then when it comes down to, one of our newest sponsors on the channel, partners on the channel, is Modern Football Technology, which is a company that is helping with real-time analytics, which is going to enhance people's play calling abilities because, you go in with a game plan and you think you have to do certain things to defend certain things. And then, when the game comes, maybe they're doing something different than they've done. Maybe their personnel's different than they've been using. And all of a sudden, you go in and you find out, hey, look, we're calling these things and we spent 80% of our time in practice working on all these other things. And now in the game, we're calling things that we've only repped 20%. We may not have a lot of success here. Let's get ourselves dialed into the things that we're comfortable doing because, the worst thing as a coach is to set up practice all week to work on, whatever you're working on offensively or defensively in your game plan. And then when you get to the game, you don't call the things that you were working on 80% of the time in practice, right? That's not a good plan. That's not good organization. As a coach, you want to be practicing the things the things you think you're going to need to use. And then you want to be using in a game the things that you've worked on the most. And then you need to adjust from there, right? But in the early stages of a game, you shouldn't be so far off kilter that, you're the things that you spent 80 to 90% of the week practicing, you've only called twice and you've made 15 calls of things that you didn't get 2 reps in all week in practice. That's just not a very good recipe for success. If you want to give your kids a chance to be successful, you need to do the things that you've been repping and working on. And then as the flow of the game changes, obviously, if you go in and you think you're going to run the ball 80% of the time and, you give up a special teams touchdown and a pick six and you're down 14-0, that's going to change the flow of the game. You don't have a choice now but to possibly do things a little bit differently than you thought. But when you go to throw the ball, you should probably throw the things that you threw in practice that week, right? So if you thought that you were going to play 4 down for whatever reason, 70% of the time, and that's what you practice 70% of the week, and then all of a sudden they're coming out and all this other stuff, and you feel like you need your 3 down. Well, when you go to your 3 down and you make that adjustment, at least try to call the things that you practice the other 30% of the time when you worked on your 3 down stuff. And that's what, Modern Football Technology and real-time analytics can do for you. It can chart the game without you having to do it kind of manually anymore. You can input things as they're going, and then it spits back out to you exactly what's going on down and distance, and what you've called and what you've called and what you ran it against, and what's been good to 2x2 and what's been good to 3x1, and what you should avoid and stay out of, because every time you call that, you've given up explosive plays. Like, I think everybody charts that stuff, and a lot of times you might have a guy writing it down in the booth, or you're trying to match it up with your game strat film, whatever you're doing. But now, when you can just input it as it's happening, and the guy in the booth can match it with, you have somebody in the booth that's inputting what's going on, your calls, what they're in, and then it gets matched to your film. And now you can go back and it spits out all the tendencies and all the analytics, and it goes back and says, hey, look, first down, they are 80% this, we've been 90% this. Here's what's been best for us. Here's what I think we need to live in on first down. Right? Because that's, as a play caller, is how you're going to get better, understanding the flow of the game and what you need to do and how you need to do it. Something, when you can get things kicked back to you to remind you to say, hey, look, you've blitzed 5 times, and every time you blitzed, it's been a play of 15 yards or more. We don't need to pressure anymore. Or, hey, on first down, you've pressured twice, and both times you pressured, it was a tackle for a loss, right? All things that you want to keep in mind, all things that you want to know when you're calling a game. So the analytics of it, the real-time analytics of it, are all things that are going to help, coaches tremendously, because I want to make sure as we go in, through the summer and get into fall camp, I want to make sure when we get to fall camp, we are already working on things that have been installed. We're working on things that we've been doing. We're not wasting our time with brand new installs, right? We're not all of a sudden trying to do brand new things. I want to do the things that we've been doing. I want to stay consistent to what we've been doing and how we've been doing it. Obviously now it ramps up because there's contact and there's block destruction and there's tackling that has to get done and special teams that have to get done. So, the plan is going to change a little bit from time to time. There's going to be ebbs and flows of things that you need to change and things you need to do different from time to time. But at the end of the day, you want to organize it to a point where you say, look, if we feel like we're going to be in these coverages and this front 70% of the night, and that's how we set up our practice plan, well, we need to practice that 70% of the time during the week, right? So we need to match that up and be able to carry our practice thoughts into the game. And when I talk to younger coaches, sometimes that's kind of one of the things I tell them. I'm like, look, when you're practicing all week, you've got a game plan. And I understand that game plans are going to change and the game doesn't always go the way you want it to. But when you start a game off, that game should match everything that you've done all week in practice. If your calls don't match the things you've done in practice early on in games, you're doing your kids a disservice and you're doing yourself a disservice, because why organize and structure and plan your practices? They should be being planned around things that you think you're going to need to do to win football games, right? So when you're organizing those practices and the time and the periods and, what days you're doing certain situations and however you're, working on doing those things that you're doing, you don't want to get into a game and all of a sudden find out that it doesn't match up at all. We're not doing anything that we worked on, because that isn't really a good plan of attack, right? You want to be as organized and as structured as possible. And I want to make sure that if I do pressure, I call the pressures that we worked on all week, the pressures that we've lined up, to formations, the pressures that the kids have seen. I don't just want all of a sudden, if we need to pressure grab bag, 2 pressures that we haven't called in 2 weeks or 2 pressures that we installed in camp. I want to make sure that when I go into the game plan and I say, hey, I like these 4 to 6 pressures this week. Well, heck, stick to calling those 4 to 6, and don't get flustered early on if they're not working. And all of a sudden, feel like you have got to make different calls because you're not having success, right? I think sometimes as coordinators, we get away from the game plan too quickly. At least I know for myself, that's always been an issue. I get away from the game plan a little bit too quickly when things are kind of going the wrong way. I have a habit of always trying to fix things schematically, when sometimes you can just fix them, techniques, fundamentals, alignment. It doesn't always have to be another call or a new call. If you're not playing well, it might just be fixing some of the things that you're doing. Maybe you fix your eyes, maybe you fix the technique of how you're taking certain blocks on, or, maybe you fix little things that are going on, right? It doesn't always have to be another play. It doesn't always have to be a new scheme. It doesn't always have to be a new blitz or a new coverage. It can be maybe just adjusting what you're in to what they're doing and getting it tightened up so that it works. And for me, that's, a habit that I have a lot of the times as, as a defensive coordinator is if things aren't working early, I feel like we've got to make all these different adjustments and changes. And, um, where it might have just been, hey, we had bad eyes there, blew an assignment. It's not the call all the time. I think the easiest thing for coordinators to look at is, um, if it's a bad play, a bad result, and it was a bad call. That's not necessarily always the truth. A lot of times on offense, you've got a great play call and one guy misses a block or one guy on defense beats a block and makes a tackle for a loss or what. I don't think that necessarily means that that's a bad play call. You might have had the greatest call into the greatest look. I remember one year we were playing a team with a kid that eventually went on to play in the NFL, and he was playing 3 technique, and we had midline call to the 3 technique, and quarterback checked it to the 3 technique side, and we ran midline, and he tackled the quarterback to dive and everybody else in his way. And you're looking at it and you're thinking to yourself, based on the result, that's a terrible play call. But if you're a check with me team running midline and you run midline to the 3, it doesn't necessarily make it a bad play call, right? So, think of how many times you've had great explosive plays where the quarterback scrambled and made a play, or a running back made 3 people miss. You might have ran toss sweep into 7 guys, outside the box on the perimeter, and you could only block 2 of them, and your tailback made the other 5 miss, and all of a sudden it's an explosive rate. That doesn't make it a great play. It makes it a great result. So, sometimes as coordinator, you got to kind of look at things and say, all right, look, is that a scheme deal? Is that a call? Are we getting out called or out schemed here? Or are we just not executing what we need to do, to get the job done? The other thing, obviously, you're always going to have to look at when it comes to 11-on-11 football is you're watching film. You have an idea of how you might match up, but when game night comes, the physicality of everything changes. Maybe you match up better than you thought. Maybe you don't match up at all. That's the first thing you need to kind of get a feel of, because that, to me, is probably what's going to dictate the ebb and flow of how you're going to call the rest of that game if you're just getting physically worn out or physically manhandled, right? That's going to be something that, obviously you have to adjust to. And again, hopefully the adjustments that you're making are things that you practiced all week, or at least things that you worked on, because I think you really put your kids in a bad situation if you ask them to do a bunch of things that you haven't done in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So, again, organizing your practices, organizing your game plans, understanding why we're trying to do what we're trying to do and how we can do a better job with what we're trying to do. What formations and plays are going to give us issues. What things do we absolutely have to defend? Who do we need to take out of the game? Who do we need to worry about? Which of our guys maybe do we need to protect? If it's against certain receivers, maybe we need to protect our back end guys with certain coverages because they've got some guys that we don't match up with, or, how do we need to protect maybe our edges because we're getting a bunch of perimeter runs? So, that to me is all part of the experience, right? It's part of being a play caller. It's part of being a coordinator. It's part of, learning how the game changes, learning how much different a Friday night is than watching 2 games on film, right? When you don't really know the physicality of who's involved. If you haven't played. Now, if you've played somebody straight up and know how you match up against them, and then that your opponent plays them later on in the season and you have that film, that's a little bit different because now you can match those things up, right? A lot of times early in the year, you get 2 films or a film on somebody and you only played one team. They've only played one team. You don't really know how good or bad either team is going to be. So all the things that go into game planning, which leads you to believe that you're going to need to practice these things all week. And then hopefully when you get to the game, those are the things that we're going to call, because that's how you structure and organize, to me, not only solid game plans, but that's how you win football games. You do the things that you have prepared your kids to do, and you stay the course, and your adjustments are things that you're comfortable doing. You don't go out and grab bag by the seat of your pants and play call things that you never ran, and then all of a sudden ask the kids why they couldn't do it. Well, we haven't ran that in 2 weeks. We didn't practice it all week. So, and those are all things that you live and you learn, right? Those are all things that I've done. Those are all things that I've been guilty of as a coordinator. And trying to put our team in a good situation, but actually doing them a disservice by, you know, expecting them to execute things that we haven't repped in all week in practice, or expecting them to execute things that we didn't give them looks at during practice. So, again, that's part of the job. That's part of what you do. And that's why I love as we enter this time of year, because now we can truly focus on, what we need to do to win games, and then how we're going to game plan to win games, without having to worry about, all right, well, we can't drop 8. We can't bring 8 guys. No, now we're full time, ready to go. All of our guys can be in coverage. All of our guys, if we throw 7-on-7, we can use all 8. We can make the coverage calls we need. We can play our drop 8, cover 3 stuff, because, my head coach is going to let me do it because he knows we need it to get us better, right? If you're trying to compete and you're dropping 8 against your offense the entire time, well, it's not really that fair of a drill. I don't really care necessarily about beating our offense, because I need our offense to score points. I want our offense to be really good. It makes my job easier. I need our kids to see and play the things that we need to play and they need to see. And I can't do that in summer 7-on-7 stuff when I can't bring everybody on the back end with us, right? So, again, just, whether it's a little bit of a rant, a little bit, to me, it's an educational piece. I think people need to understand how they are approaching and viewing 7-on-7. And I think they need to understand, how they are approaching and what their philosophy is towards what's going to make them a better football team and what's going to prepare them to win games. Because, as a head coach for 22 years, I think what ends up happening sometimes is you feel like if you're not doing it and everybody else is, you're getting worse. Well, there is some merit to that in some fashion, but, we were kind of joking about it today. If you're a triple option team, your passing game is probably going to be predicated around the constraints that the defense has fitting your option stuff. And, when you throw the ball, you're probably going to throw things that are opened up by what you do because of your option offense. And you probably wouldn't have a ton of success as a 7-on-7 team, because you probably don't carry a myriad of concepts to beat all these coverages. And the other team doesn't have to fit option in 7-on-7. So, if you were a really good triple option team and that's how you played offense, 7-on-7 for you sometimes, I don't know how much sense it makes, because your passing game is not suited to be just a passing game. It's suited to take advantage of the things the other team has to do to stop your run game. Right. So, that's just one of those deals that, it's, if you were an empty 5-wide team that threw the ball 60 times a game, I don't think you would want to enter yourself into, short yardage goal line competitions where people are going to be, 13, 22 personnel, and they're going to, ram it down everybody's throat, and you're an empty 5-wide and have to complete passes to score. It's the way it is, right? There's no, obviously 7-on-7 is what it is, and there's no short yardage games over the summer. But, again, it's like anything else. You need to do things that fit your team. And if certain things don't fit how you play, then just because everybody else is doing it doesn't mean you necessarily have to. I don't think you're getting worse. If you're practicing at your place and you're not throwing 7-on-7 against other people, and you're practicing the things you need to do to get better, and let's say you were a single wing team, right? Let's say, for argument's sake, you're a single wing team. Well, if you choose not to throw 7-on-7 with people because you'd rather stay at your school and rep your single wing offense, I don't think that is harming your offense. I actually think that's common sense. I think that makes a ton of sense. See, as a head coach, though, sometimes you sit back and you go, man, I'm getting these calls about 7-on-7. Everybody else is throwing 7-on-7. We have to go out and throw. Well, no, you don't. As long as you give your defense the work it needs to defend, and you can give your defense looks, are you going to miss out competing against other kids? Yeah, I agree with that. Do you need to sometimes go to other places and let your kids see other kids to let them know what else is out there and see some speed that you can't duplicate? Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of good that can come from it, but I think you just have to approach it the right way. So, in the world for us, dropping 8 doesn't really help me that much. And again, my philosophy is I don't worry about pass rush as much. I'm worried about covering things. I need to defend those quick passing games, the access throws. I need to defend the now screens. I need to defend the bubbles, because that's what, in my opinion, and again, when I say opinion, I mean more statistical evaluation, analytical data. of coaching for 24 years, that's what I think we see. I think we see a majority of those type passes. So I'm going to build my defense, to be conducive to what we see now. Do we have 5-man pressure? Sure we do. Do we have 6-man pressure? Sure we do. Are there years where we pressure 40% of the time? Yes, there are. But again, philosophically, when you're thinking about it, and the way I approach it is, why try to get to the quarterback if the ball's going to be out of his hand? You'd have a better chance or a better opportunity to cover that. So again, like all the things I've been talking about earlier, that's how we do what we do, and it's just what we do that I think gives us a chance to win. So, we don't play some of our coverages in 7-on-7 because they don't match up with the way we teach them. 5 under 3 deep is different than 4 under 3 deep. So, you can't coach them the same. You can't teach them the same. So it doesn't make sense if you're a 5 under 3 deep team dropping 8, you can't go to a 7-on-7 and ask your kids to play a version of 3 deep. You're going to get yourself torn apart because you don't match things the way a 3 deep team that's 4 under 3 deep matches things. Could you drop to the hash and, could you drop 2 yards inside the hash, top of the numbers and 3 deep guys and keep the ball inside and in front? Yeah, you probably could. But if it's not what you do, then why would you, waste your time again teaching that, right? It's to me, it's yes, it's competitive. Yes, your kids have a good time. Yes, it's timing. Yes, it's throwing. Yes, it's catching. Yes, it's changing direction. Yes, it can be conditioning. Certainly things that are all good. I just feel like for us, it is a little bit of a disservice at times. So good part is for the first 35 minutes that I talked about it, it's over. We can get ready for the season now, and all you guys are probably getting ready for the season. So, I hope everybody is. I hope your programs are doing well. I hope your summer's going great. I hope you've got everything that you needed to get to either installed, or you've looked at it, or you've tried things and figured out what worked and what hasn't worked. And hopefully you've got, a good plan and a good mindset going in of what you feel like you need to do to win games. That should be part of summer evaluation, right? It should be for us. We have spring. So we come out of the spring and we see things we like, things we don't like. We see things we got to fix. We see things that are good for us, things that are not good for us. We see players that we can win with and players that probably we need to try and replace if we can, because they're going to struggle against other opponents. So the summer is all about fixing that stuff and getting stronger and getting in better shape and teaching kids how to change direction and, some injury rehab stuff, prehab stuff. Prehab, not rehab, some prehab stuff to kind of strengthen some things up, to hopefully get us through, the season when it starts to get, physical and a little bit stressful on the body and joints. So, that's what the summer should be for. And now as we wind that down, it's kind of getting into, now we're getting into where it's more game plans and it's more organizing practices and it's figuring out what we need to do in our practice plan to have success and what are we struggling with. And one of the things we came away with from today's 7-on-7 is, next week before we start camp, we need to do a bunch of formation rec things and see a bunch of different formations and when we can bar the backside safety and when we can't. Our guys need to see empty and we need to see motions things that kind of give us some issues over the summer doing the 7-on-7 stuff. Yeah, I agree with you. Again, I think it's all how you teach it and how you coach it. We try not to let our kids get bad habits, just to have success in 7-on-7. Again, we play our base coverages. We don't make a lot of changes. So we're going to make sure that our eyes are right. The one thing the one thing I was upset about today was our leverage on the ball, running, tagging off at the hip and near foot, near shoulder and all that stuff. We did a poor job of that today. And that was kind of frustrating and upsetting because we spent so much time doing non-contact tackling drills to get in position, to work near foot, near shoulder, to close, to track a hip. And then, that's the other part. Sometimes kids get out in 7-on-7 and, if the ball's caught, because you can't tackle anybody, it's not as important. So you just kind of put a hand out. It's all our kids play other 7-on-7. They play usually in leagues or tournaments or whatever. So they think the rules are what they are. So it's one hand touch. Well, no, it's not one hand touch for us. We're always working tackling. So, again, but as a coach, I think that's something you can, and I'm a little bit upset at myself that we didn't do a better job of kind of, instilling that and ingraining that in our kids' minds that, look, I don't care what the damn rules are for 7-on-7. If they complete a pass, we are going to run our ass off, near foot, near shoulder, tag off at the hip. Like, to me, you develop habits, and like you said, you're fixing bad habits. To me, you develop a habit. It's a good one or a bad one, right? You don't, if you if you let your kids get away with certain stuff, then they're going to develop bad habits. If you force them to run to the ball and tag off near foot, near shoulder, then you're going to develop good habits, right? It's not like, you know, um, you only develop bad habits. You can develop good habits too. It's whatever preach and see and do and work on all the time. Those are the things that hopefully should, that should pay out in the long run for you. So, again, like I said, yeah, we have to fix some things. I try to make sure we have good eyes, try to make sure we're not staring at the quarterback. I try to make sure, our reads are on point. I try to make sure our backers aren't getting out too early and just dropping because it's 7-on-7. And those are the things that we control. Those are the things that we can handle. I don't control what the other team runs. So, if the other team is 3-by-1 90% of the time or empty 90% of the time, I don't control what they call. If that's how they play, fine. When you work on 7-on-7 with other teams, unless you guys script it together, they're going to do what they do, and they're doing probably what they feel. In my mind, you would hope that they're doing what they feel makes them a better team to win football games, and not just doing things that they feel are going to be successful in that 7-on-7. Now, granted, there are some guys that literally, when you schedule 7-on-7s, the idea is they want to win that 7-on-7. They need to, have success in that 7-on-7. So again, how would you do that? Play more things that are conducive to 7-on-7 and not as conducive to what you do in your 11-on-11 football. So, it's just one of those things where it's all about the coaching approach. It's all about your style. Luckily for me and my head coach, we don't let it bother us too much. Obviously we're upset if we don't do well, but it's like, hey, stick to your guns, run your offense. I'm going to run my defense. We'll have a few change-ups in there, a few man wrinkles and some things because we need to learn how to play man anyways. But I'm not going to sit in that the entire time and, man under too deep or whatever it may be. We're not going to do those things just to be more successful in the 7-on-7 because I don't think it helps us throughout the season. So eyes are not what they should be. Played a little man and eyes not on the man. I tell the kids we are going to be basic. And if they – yeah, I mean, that's the thing. But it's hard for the kids because if they start getting shredded – 7-on-7 comes with all the talk and all the bullshit and all the, the way kids behave. And if you don't play against a staff that monitors that and they let the kids behave that way, then your kids are naturally going to get pissed off because, you're getting shredded and they're talking shit and acting a fool. And, so that's the other thing about 7-on-7. You can only control your team. You can't control who you play against. So, if they feel like they make one great play and the entire team makes noises and yells and, bitches, they're hollering at a corner because he got, an up ball on him and all that shit. Like, that just makes it worse for your kids. So the environment of it sometimes too is, now that can be controlled by coaches. So if you do 7-on-7s with people that and programs that you are going to be run the way you want them to be run, now it's like, hey, when that shit happens, gets nipped in the bud right away because it's either you or their coach or somebody else telling them, hey, it's not what we do and that's not what this is about. We're trying to get better. We're trying to play football. You're not going to be able to do that shit on the field, so don't do it here. But again, that's just the nature of the beast. It's what it's become. It's what 7-on-7 tournaments have become. It's what 7-on-7 leagues have become. We allow kids to do backflips and we allow kids to excessively celebrate and we allow kids to get in the face of, another kid that is pissed off because he just gave up a touchdown. And now you're going to make it even worse by, instigating that on. That wouldn't, you wouldn't be able to do that without a flag in football. So, again, that's just part of the territory. It is what it is. But good thing is, for this year at least, don't have to worry about it anymore. We can gear up and get ready to go and now start worrying about the season and regular football. And, but again, some things do pop out at you where you see that certain kids aren't ready yet and other kids play a little bit better. Maybe some kids play better under the pressure of a game and some kids crack. You find out that maybe there's some kids that are just playmakers. You got to find a way to play. So again, any competitive opportunity is never a waste. I would never say it's a waste of time. It's just frustrating for me on my end, because I don't feel like it matches up to the way we do things. So, but again, we've got 5 days left, 1 day tomorrow, 4 days next week. And then July 29th, we start up and it's full-time go again. So, Obviously summer's winding down, free time is winding down. But for me, the good thing is now I have more film that I have access to for Patreon videos. I have more things to talk about because football is more things that I can talk about what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, what other teams are doing. College and NFL football's on now, so you can start to see where the trends go. So, everything is kind of an emotional roller coaster of when this time of year comes, that summer's over, school's about to start again, but football's here. So, it's the highs and lows, the ups and downs of what goes on. So, in order for football to come back, that means summer has to end, right? So your vacations and all your free time and all that other stuff, it kind of goes hand in hand. So, for me, that means that we're about full go. Business picks up a little bit more for play fast stuff that we're doing. Obviously because we have film and I have, you know, I have opportunity to take people through drives and talk about calls that we made and what our game plan was and talk about adjustments that we made, right? That I don't have that opportunity when I don't have film. So, I don't analyze college games. I don't use college film. I don't talk about NFL games or NFL film. Everything I talk about is what we do in high school. So my film is really the only film I have. So during the season is a lot easier for me to do that. So I'm excited about it. I think we're going to be really, really competitive and win, in my opinion, 7 games or more. Whether or not we take the next step on offense and defense will dictate whether or not we can advance in the playoffs or, win 8, 9, or 10 games. There's a couple things that we really need to get done to do that. But I feel like with our schedule and the kids that we have and the amount of returners that we have, I feel like the work we've done in the offseason, we put ourselves in position to win a bunch of games. And now we just got to go ahead and get that done, right? So we've got a staff meeting tomorrow after our morning workout. So get a chance to talk to the defensive staff. I haven't had a chance to talk to them really together all summer. Get a chance to talk to them about kind of the philosophic changes that we made, why we're not 3 high anymore, personnel that we need to use, the personnel that we need to find. So, again, all good things. Obviously, it's the busy time of year. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. The first couple of weeks for us in Florida are absolutely brutal because it's going to be 110 degrees. So it's just kind of really physically draining to be out there. And, especially now for me, I'll be 52 in August. So you feel like you're in decent shape, but you're certainly not 30 years old anymore. So you got to watch those things. You got to take care of yourself and make sure you're hydrating and eating and doing some things to be ready because it's going to be hot. And, but that's the fun part of it, right? So, like I said, July 29th, we kick off. Exciting time to get ready to go again. And especially since we made some changes on defense, a little nerve wracking, but excited to see how the new scheme fits our players, what people are going to do to try and get after the new scheme. How I feel like, where I feel like we are compared to when we were, a 3 high team the last 2 years, and just kind of make some adjustments off of that and figure out, the best way for us to win football games with the kids that we have, right? That's the fun part. The fun part is every year roster change, you lose kids, you gain kids. And as a coach, you've got to be able to make the adjustments you need to make to win football games, right? So that's the fun part. That's the fun time of the year. Obviously the time, the amount of time, the hours, the lack of sleep, all the restlessness that comes with the season and all the kind of anxiety, stress, but that's also the fun part, right? There's a reason you go through those range of emotions and you have those feelings, right? There's a reason there is anxiety and stress and things in the world because it lets you know what's important in your life. It lets you know that you're alive. It gives you that feeling of, there's a reason you get nervous. There's a reason for all those things. So that's what it is. It's that time of year. That's why we all do it. I appreciate every one of you guys being here tonight. I appreciate you listening to me rant about 7-on-7, talk a little bit about drop 8 coverages and why I don't like 7-on-7 because of the impact it has on us. If you've been watching recently or you checked out anything on Twitter, Dome Hats has a BOGO deal going on right now. So if you're a coach at a program or if you have a business or anything else and you're looking to, you're looking to build your brand, or if you are a football coach and you're looking for a fundraiser that you can do, they've got a BOGO deal going on right now with buy one, get one. It's actually, this hat is the promo that is on the flyer. This is my brand new Play Fast hat. It is a snapback hat. It's what they call their P2 performance cap. So if you're interested, you can hit me up, leave me a message, hit me up on Twitter, or leave me a comment in one of the YouTube videos, and I'll put you in touch with the right people. 72 hats at $9.99, and you get 72 free. When I was a head coach, I would jump all over it because that's 144 hats at $5.99 a piece. If I sell them for $20 a piece, I'm making $15 a hat. So it's always about fundraisers, repping the brand, doing everything you could. And for me, it's about helping the partners out, right? Those guys help us. They take care of us. So I have to take care of them. So I appreciate all you guys being here. Thanks for being with another YouTube Live. Thanks for everything you do for PlayFast. Again, if you have any ideas for videos, if you have any questions, hit me up, leave a comment, leave a message. You can look me up. It's Coach Mac 8740 on Twitter. I'm on there all the time doing stuff. So hit me up, send me a message, DM me, whatever you need. If I have it and I can do it, I will certainly help you because I appreciate every one of you guys. Remember, you won't play well until you play fast. Hope you've had a great summer. It's just about over, but I will see you guys next time.